Let's wait for a couple people to show up here, and then I'm going to do this reaction to Rich Prater, and he's brought Sully on. I haven't heard it yet. I've been busy today. Sully's also joined the Facebook group Crime Weekly, where Stephanie Harlow and Derek are reviewing the case. I can tell you right now, don't get your panties all in a bunch. I spoke to Stephanie a long time ago about the Darley case. I know where she stands. I know that she was a growing channel back then, and now she's got the views. She's been featured in shows. She's been on Netflix. Yeah, don't get your panties all in a bunch, and don't get up under her page with that bullshit neither, because she's here to tell you. I'll wait for a couple people to come in. Until then, let me see if I can find something to get us into. Well, no, I'll just go ahead and do it. I want to hear this. So.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Rich Prater. I am your host. We are on episode 69, and we're going to do the long-awaited one-on-one with myself and Sully.
Long awaited. So that means that he does watch my videos, which is fine. It's not been long awaited, Rich. It's when you bring these type of clowns on your channel. You don't know where she's at and doing other things. She's back to blaming this on Darren and cocaine as of 23 hours ago. Blaming Darren. That's something the family doesn't even do. And they stick up for Darren adamantly. And here she's pushing, he did cocaine. Darla did fuck cocaine too, dumbass. She just didn't have any in her system then. Darren went to work. He was trying to build a business. He was trying to get better and better and better. And what she did was hold him back. Because as soon as she went away, he got out there and he did it. He didn't have stop till you drop Darla there with him. So, let's see what they got to say. Let's see how my sound is. Let's see what they got to say.
How you doing today, Sully?
I'm great. How are you today?
Oh, I'm living the dream.
Yeah.
Out of everyone on my panel, I think I probably know Sully the best.
So you know what a piece of shit liar she is then, right, Rich?
We've taken trips and actually worked on other cases, one in Houston, and we've discussed other cases in Anna.
Okay, now here's the thing. Rich keeps saying that he works on these other cases. Well, who's he work for? What's he working towards? And how much do they pay him? I want to know what he makes as a private investigator, because he continues to say that he works on these cases. You might go to look and explore a case, but if you're working on a case, that means you have a job to do within the case, surrounded by the people that are in the case, that they want you to do something for them, and they're going to pay you. That makes you an investigator. Otherwise, you're a true crime junkie, just like the rest of us.
I was actually kind enough one time to even come to my house. She brought a friend with her, and we had a nice little afternoon. It started a little shaky at the beginning because nobody knew one another. But so
I guess at the beginning, her very first impression of her was not that good.
I got to know Anna and know where her heart is, and I know it's for the right cause. It turned into something great because we're actually helping other people, not only with this case but with other cases.
See, that's what I don't get. They're talking about they're helping other people by saying that, they created a mock trial somewhere that there's absolutely no proof of, and that they felt like Darla was innocent. How are you helping anybody by coming on here? What I do, I'm not trying to help anybody. I'm just trying to help people. I'm just trying to show people what the truth is and where the shenanigans in this case, where they're at. And I have not seen any of this, but I guarantee you I'm going to get some shenanigan out of it.
I would very much love to discuss those other cases, but we have not been given the permission.
Oh, that's just too convenient to not be given the permission. You know, you can tell us who hired you. You can say what case they are. That's just too convenient, Rich.
From the families to do so at this time. Now, at a later time, we may get that, and we will do it if that's the case. But anyway, I've also
noticed that over the years that Rich has been so busy with these other cases, doing this and that with these other cases. But the only one he talks about or shares about on here is Darley's case. This is not the only case that I know. It sure isn't.
I wanted to say, if you look at the bottom of the screen at the ticker, I got my email address going there. And that's in case anybody wants to contact me, because I no longer have social media. My social media got hacked. It got shut down. I don't even really know what happened. I was really angry and mad. You can bet the farm I have an idea what happened. But in light of that, I've just...
Rich seems to think that we all live on farms and that we want to bet them. Now, I don't know what happened to his Facebook, but he's got his suspicions or whatever. I don't know what he's talking about. He says he doesn't have social media. It got hacked. This is probably something he did. And nobody hacks them. Nobody. I was once accused. These people, the people that run, the old time supporters with Darley Key and Lawrence Wilson and Patrick King and Stephanie Hopkins, all the old timers, the ones that kind of know the case way better than these ones do. All right. They accused me, right? Because I have a friend that's a colonel in the Air Force, and they got wind of that. So they accused me of being military intelligence and hacking into people's shit. Ask Pam. Years ago, they really thought they had me over something like that. They said I was military intelligence. But, well, whatever, apparently there is some kind of email for him because he just posted it. So I don't know what he's talking about here. We'll find out.
Never turned it back on, which is something I could do. I probably will do in the future, but haven't done it this time. But if anybody wants to get in contact with me, they can send me an email and I will respond. This is a pre-recorded podcast, as you know, and in the future we will be doing question and answers that will be live for people to attend in the comment section. Now, Anna
he kind of skipped over the whole part where it's important to him that both sides of the case. And when something's important to me, that means I want other people to know it. Like this case is important to me because I feel like Devin and Damon aren't being doing any justice at all. And so I want other people to know it. So if something is important to Rich, shouldn't he want people to know where to get both sides from?
As she runs kitchen table research on YouTube and TikTok. She does a lot of stuff on the Darley case.
She's an absolute expert, y'all. Y'all saw where she claimed that she's an expert in this case to a whole bunch of people on Reddit.
And she does other cases as well.
But then she posted earlier, just 23 hours ago, that there were 18,000 mistakes in the transcripts. But she's a fucking expert, right? 33,000. That's 3 per page. And no, Sandra Halsey is not responsible for Darren said no, the doors weren't locked. You got to go back and read that testimony again, you dumbass.
Very interesting, some of them. Now, Sully's done some very interesting blood testing.
Yeah, because the forensic experts that had worked this case, including Bevel and Epstein and Labor, they didn't know how to do blood testing. They need Sully to do that.
With the Darley Routier case, Very interesting. Very interesting stuff. Check it out. And you can see that on YouTube and or TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now we're going to do the one-on-one with Sully. We're going to.
And this time he skipped completely over the whole part where he was important for both him to, they need to know both sides. He skipped right over that one because no, it's not important to him for us to know both sides, or he would give his viewers the opportunity to go to where the talk is about the other side. He doesn't do that, and that's why he doesn't do these live. If I'm alive, let me tell you what, I'm live right now. Any Darling supporter is welcome to come into my chat. It's not going to throw me off. It's not going to change the facts. It's not going to sway me at all. But if non-supporters start coming into Rich's chats and he starts getting tripped up, that's what happens. He starts getting tripped. So he's turned off and he's done it this way because he can't stand on what he's saying. He's not confident of what he's saying about Darling. He's not.
Start and keep it short, sweet, and simple. Sully, how did you find out about this case? And when you did find out about this case, what was your initial thoughts?
Well, I had always known about this case because I grew up in Carrollton, Texas. So, in the Dallas suburb. And my mom has always been heavily into true crime. So the morning of June 6th, when this hit the media, I remember my mom talking about it immediately. Now, I was a fairly young child. I was 7 at the time. So I kind of remember some of the media around it. I remember my mom talking to friends and colleagues about the case. And then, over the years, I would see the forensic files and the 2020 episode. But I always thought, if there was enough evidence there, surely Darlie wouldn't still be sitting on death row. So in 2020, after I left the funeral home doing body removals from the funeral home, which I feel like has helped my understanding of trying to help solve some of these cases, because I know.
All right. When I worked in extreme maintenance and floor fire, water damage, all that restoration and that control, I filmed where I went. I know what a bloody crime scene looks like. I know what that smell is that you can't get off of you for days. That gives me a little bit of insight too. You remove bodies. I cleaned up after dead bodies so that the coroner's office could come in. We have to go in and initially take care of the smell. The smell will knock you out if you're not used to it. I put up a video where we're doing that. I'm going in and getting rid of the smell. Got the things on my shoes and all that, stepping over shit. That's just one.
Know what happens post-mortem. I worked in conjunction with the medical examiner's office, and I know how some.
I worked in conjunction with the medical examiner's office. Well, our company worked in conjunction with the coroner's office.
Some of these protocols and processes work. So it was the height of COVID. I just had my son, and my mom and I decided to start a podcast, basically doing Texas true crime. And we had started going through a lot of people that had sat on death row. One of the major cases we also covered out of Austin was the Austin yogurt shop murders, and me and you have discussed those.
Yeah.
I was brought to this case, me personally. What brought me to this case, I wasn't a true crime junkie or anything like that, even though I liked it and I followed it back then. But what initially brought me to this case, the number one thing that brought me to this case, is I felt sorry for Devin and Damon. So that's what got me looking. All right, and then right off the rip, without any research or anything like that, I felt like Darlie was fucking innocent. I didn't want to and I always told myself, I knew that non-supporters existed, but I didn't come over and fuck with them. I didn't bother them. I'm like, well, these are people that just have a difference of opinion and blah, 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 blah. But when Darlie Key started lying to me behind the scenes, That was what started me to lean towards the guilt side, because she flat fucking lied to me about something that she said in private, but an hour later she denied saying it. So I took the exact post. That's how I learned how to do video. I took that exact post where Mama Key was talking to me behind the scenes, talking about Darren, how she felt like Darren did it, and I put it in the room, and they jumped all over me for recording her conversation. But no, you were just saying, I did not tell you that. Darla Key said, I did not say that to you. Yes, you did. That is what you said. Don't do that shit to me. And that pissed me off. And I still stayed in the Darley support camp for a couple of weeks after that. It was like, something ain't right. Something ain't right. She's lying. Their mom's lying. And even to this day, you catch them lying. Flat lying. Danelle's the worst. 50% of her blood? Really? What does superficial mean? Really? None of the doctors said that. There was no rape exam, blah, 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 blah. Darley's DNA was on the outside of her sock. We have that recorded. When she was asked why she said that, she said, what does it matter? These people are liars.
We've talked about that case, yeah.
Yeah, and that case still, sits at the forefront of my mind. But my mom suggested, I think we should delve into the Darlie Routier case. And I literally said, why would we do that? She's guilty. And at the time, my mom, this was 5 years ago or so, my mom said, well, the Innocence Project has picked up her case, and I think there's a lot of new information out there. So
I think about the whole Innocence Project picking up their case. Now, they're very excited. And I would be too if I was them, because the Innocence Project, is a helping hand. If there's something missing in the evidence or something done wrong procedurally in the court case, the Innocence Project will find it. But here's the thing. They keep saying they only take cases where they know someone is innocent. And that's not true. They take cases where it's controversial. And granted, I give them a little bit of credit. There are some things within the investigation that I don't like myself. The whole shit with Bill Parker, I didn't like that. I didn't like that. I didn't care for the defense to speed the trial along like they did. But it's too late for Darlie to come back and say, no, we're going to fire him because he's fast-tracking this trial. When Mulder, he only had 6 or 7 weeks to prepare, for the death row case. He could have put that vacation to Hawaii off for his case, but he didn't. And if he wasn't willing to do that, to get the continuance to study the case, then get you another lawyer. They didn't do that. That was a mistake. If Doug Mulder would have put on the case, in my opinion, if Doug Mulder would have put on the case and they presented suspicious evidence about Darren, right? I believe that they could have got her acquitted based on reasonable doubt. A lot of it. But they chose not to implicate Darren. That was the family's choice. Sully, while you're over here posting it in Crime Weekly that you believe it was Darren and cocaine, you back to that? Because that really pisses me off right there, because Darren did not have anything to do with his children being killed. Nothing. He had nothing to do with it. He wasn't dealing with shady people. I can walk down the street and get a teener from somebody right now, and it's not shady or nothing. They did coke. They were yuppies. They were into new money, just like Stephanie Harlow said. And you guys are going to beg to differ, because she's very respected in the true crime community. And she does her fucking research. And she's been on this. She's been looking at this case for about 5 years. So I brought it to her. I also brought this case to John Crimes. Back then, they had bigger channels than I did. They did not want to touch on this case because of the shit you get from these supporters who claim that you're harassing them. She's still to this day saying that we are harassing that family. Do you not think that you're harassing the family of, say, Greg Davis, Tom Bevel, Charles Lynch, Matt Walling, David Waddell, are you harassing them because you're giving your opinion about how they handle the case? No, you're not. You're giving your opinion. David Neighbors, harassing, speaking on ones that are gone. No, this is me with my opinion. If my opinion harasses you, you might need to take a look at why you feel harassed at what I'm saying. Because if I was coming out here with all these lies like they say I do, they would just challenge me. They can post it somewhere. I don't go off on people who challenge me respectfully. I don't. Oh, I'll see. I can't figure out how I can get back at him and show him that Darley's innocent. So let's put this up about his son. Let's do that. Because that makes Darley innocent. Yeah.
I went in studying, that Darley was guilty. And a few months in, reading into testimony and trying to figure out a timeline, which in most cases is fairly easy,
There is no timeline. According to Barb Davis, who they spoke so highly of, that got it all wrong. She got absolutely every word of what she wrote in Precious Angels wrong. Or was she afraid of being sued? Was she scared of Mama Darley? The letter from the inmate that wrote the letter to Greg Davis about Darley in jail, wanting to have Sandra Halsey killed. Now, I don't give that much credit, but she did say that Darley knows some powerful people on the outside. And when Sorota turned at Barb Davis on the Lisa Gibbons show and said, we could sue you for that, with her finger up, just like mine, Barb Davis turned white. And then the next segment was, I'm sorry, I was wrong. She's innocent. It looked staged. The whole thing looked staged. And they keep saying that she had gave the book, all the proceeds to the book, to Darley's defense fund. Look at the sales on that book, Precious Angels. And then tell me why they need to be asking other people for money.
To fit these pieces together. And Darley's, I just could not fit a timeline together. And that was the first time I actually called my mom and admitted. I said, there's something wrong with this case. We need to take a deeper look at this. And she was like, I told you so. And so at that time,
granted, because whenever someone feels like let's say somebody close to Darley feels like she's guilty, like Barbara Jovel, they'll say, "Oh, she was mentally ill. She's a drug addict. She did this. She did that. And blah blah blah." She's speaking on her mother, looking at the case, but she's all over Reddit talking about her mother's got Alzheimer's. Now, that was one of the things that I argue with a different Darley supporter. It was about the judge that had Alzheimer's in Darley's case. And I said, well, he didn't make any decisions on the case that swayed the jury. It was the jury that made the decision. But they tried to make it be an issue because he did have Alzheimer's. And maybe they should have got a new trial based on that. So why would we listen to anything that Sully's mom's got to say?
We broke up the testimony, and there were some testimonies I would read, some that she would read, and then some that we both wanted to read with some of the bigger players, Waddell and Walling's testimony. And then we decided to do a full-blown podcast on Darley, which we thought was going to be an episode or two saying she was guilty. And then our minds completely changed. And here I am 5 years later, still fighting for what I believe happened in the Darley Routier case.
Oh, yeah, you're letting everybody know what an expert you are because that's what you wrote on Reddit. I am an expert on the Darley Routier case. You got so much shit wrong, it's ridiculous. And you're still doing it now. 18,000 errors, huh? You kind of minimizing a little bit. You minimizing for Darley now? Is that how you're defending her? It was 33,000. And Darren was into cocaine, and Darren was doing this, and Darren. Don't you know that's a no-no? And believe me, I will send every message that you put out there. I'll send it right over to Cindy Black. I think Darren's got a right to know somebody talking shit about him like that. accusing him of murder. And everybody knows. Trust me, and all the non-supporters know this. The ones that've been around for a while. I've had a direct line to Cindy. She's a nice person. She really is. I like talking to her. Cindy Black. Seems to me like they're fed up with this. They don't care much for this Darren being blamed right after the last defense start coming out. Oh, I'll start shifting towards Darren. They don't like that. I had to end one call with Cindy Black because her horses came running up to her back kitchen window, and she had to go out and put them back.
Perfect. Well spoken. Well spoken. I also understand that fairly recently at the SHU that you had a mock trial that went on, which I know I was supposed to participate in, but I couldn't log into it.
Yeah, that's what he told me behind the scenes. He said he couldn't log into it, but we had a couple of our people log right onto it. And if she wanted you to participate, she could have gave you a log on. But she could say this, but she showed no documentation of what these professors and stuff. She's only going to be able to say it. She's not going to show nothing.
I know.
Yeah. Now, how did that work out? How did that go, Sully?
It went really well. So basically, at SNHU, they reached out to us, me and my mom, through Kitchen Table Research, and they had been wanting to cover a case that.
Well, check this out. They needed her, who at the time, she's only got a couple videos on Darlene, not very many, when there's so many other people that have lots of factual stuff about Darlene, but they reached out to Sully. They needed Sully.
There was a possible wrongful conviction in, either a botched investigation or where they believed new testing and forensic techniques could be used to help the case. They really wanted something that the Innocence Project had even worked in a highly controversial case. And so I think they found our work and looked at Darley's case. And really,
they called you based on your few videos about Darley's case. But see, you're not going to be able to show anything. Here we did this mock trial, and I called them, and they don't know anything about a mock trial. And I wanted to know who these professors were that encouraged this. They didn't know anything about it.
It was SNHU that put all the work together. And
all right, if all the work is together, see, she's going to say now she's going to say now that she's afraid to put this stuff out because the students don't want to get doxxed. All right, that's what she said somewhere. I forget where she said it. But the thing of it is you've already said that SNHU, you named them, reached out to you, the two professors, you've already said it. So you've put the location down. Had you not done that, they wouldn't have anything to worry about, which they don't anyway. But if these college kids think that she is innocent, we'd love to see that. You should make that public so that will help your cause. I would, if I were you, but we're going to get nothing but talk from you. Watch.
And me and I actually worked on the prosecution side. My mom helped with the defense side and just getting people the resources that they needed if they were looking for.
All right, so they were getting everything from Sully with 18,000 mistakes in the transcripts. You can go back and look at my videos where she's got a lot of stuff wrong. So they based their innocence only on stuff Sully gave them.
For something in testimony, but it was the school that put all of that together. And then we were only allowed to use what was used or had gone through the court system. So a lot of information came out of the 1997 trial. And then anything on the defense's side that we used.
Was there a trial in 98 or 99? I'd just say Darley's trial.
Was found through her appeals. And so that was the conditions around the case, is that we had to use information that came from a legal entity, whether through appeals or affidavits or whatever, that had gone through, Rowlett or Dallas Police Department. So I actually, I'm pretty competitive, and I was actually pushing for the prosecution. I really wanted, some of these kids to get in their mind that Darlie was guilty, and then see if my mom and her side, the defense, could defend themselves. And I think they both did an amazing job when it got, and I wasn't, none of us were allowed to be in the room when our mock jurors, 12 people, went in to deliberate, and it only took them about 5 minutes. There was one person
I'd like to see
that
some
thought that she
evidence.
was guilty, but they couldn't go for the death penalty. And because their other peers had all gone not guilty. And I
So this is an online community, online college.
have to remember these kids are in criminal justice. So he said he was gonna, and I was able to view the video after the deliberation, but he basically said, since he was the only one that thought she was guilty and he couldn't go for the death penalty on her case, that
On your other video, you said every one of them thought that she was innocent.
they settled on not guilty across the board. So that was pretty interesting to see a group of maybe, peers that are
A group of kids, as you just referred to them as, these kids are in criminal, of people that got stuff that you brought to them, and they decided that Darlie was innocent, but they're not going to present that anywhere to anybody. They're only going to leave that for you to tell the world to. And we're supposed to believe that. Remember, you typed out that your glasses cost $20,000 fucking dollars.
Or more.
And you're saying that you're being harassed and all this other lying bullshit that you do. And we're supposed to believe you.
Likely to know the criminal justice system and what their thoughts on this trial was. But there was a lot of no ways, that didn't really happen. And it's like, yes, we know that it really did. You know what I mean?
I'm trying to remember, Sully.
There's so many of them that she can't give an example. There's no proof of this. This is what they do. They just throw shit out and you're supposed to buy it.
It's been a long time. I got in touch with you through Tara, right?
Yeah, and through Danelle.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kept, well, you had been sick at that.
I wonder what Danelle thinks of you posting as recently as yesterday about her brother-in-law who lost Devin and Damon. I wonder what she thinks about you accusing him of being on cocaine and getting the crime done. I wonder what she thinks. Because to us, she's not going to talk about it. Darren loves her. He believes 100% in her innocence. No.
At time when you had, and so they said, as soon as Rich is better, we want you to meet Rich and tell him your thoughts. And gosh, that first day that me and you were finally able to get on the phone together, we talked for hours about, what I had found, stuff that I was able to, bust the myth on or whatever. And, of course, you've been working on this for so long. You had names and people that I had, even to this day, when I look at some of your work.
Remember that Darlie told Rich that she passed out on the porch. He said, she told me she passed out on the porch. Oh, yeah. Well, Matt Walling and the other paramedic, I'd have to look at it right now. I think it was Kobe or Coach, one of them. They tended to her at the porch. They didn't mention her being passed out, but Darlie told him. So, fuck what the people who were there said, right?
I'll flip through. There's names and stuff I've never even heard of in this case that you did before the Innocence Project picked it up.
So you're an expert, though. That's what you told the people that read it. You were an expert. And here you say, I ain't heard of this name. I ain't know.
Up. And so, I say if for anything, Darlie has brought us together, and it made me want to get into private investigations, and the cases we've taken on, I think we've been able to help some families out, and I want to continue to do that,
But we can give you no examples of the families we've helped out because we don't have permission. That reminds me of David Moth back in the day when he'd say, well, Charlie Q told me this, but I'm not at liberty to discuss it. I'm not at liberty. I always want to know who this Liberty was that Dave Moth hung around because he was never at liberty to discuss it.
Yeah, I know the AL case that we do. I know their family, they're very grateful for the work that you've done, very grateful for what I've done. And we actually, I know you traveled, what was it, 11 or 12 hours to get there, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. It was, if I recall, I think it was about 5.5 for me. Of course, when we went down there, we got hit with a hurricane, which was interesting. So,
yeah, that was a very interesting trip.
Well, Sully,
You think that with all of Sully's expertise and knowledge on technology and college campuses, and they need to call her, that she would be able to get her fucking mic set up before the show so it would work.
if you would have stayed, you would have seen how much worse it got. The front doors of the hotel where we stayed got blown right open. And I was only about maybe 50, 60 foot from the door when they got ripped open. Like, it's pretty wild. I was actually talking to my mother on the phone, and I told my mother, I said, I'm gonna try to skip on out of here, as soon as I can. My mother said, you better stay put till that thing stirs upon. There's no power. It's so hot and humid. There's nothing to eat, and it's pitch black,
Yeah.
So we did leave in the midst of the hurricane, just like you did, but you got a little bit further ahead of it than I did. I actually drove through the eye wall and everything, and I just couldn't make it home. I had to stop and get a hotel. I made about 200 miles home, and I had to stop and get a hotel room. I couldn't
you
make
guys
it.
were heading in a different
That's their mic.
direction than I was. I was headed away.
Yeah, you were heading away from it. I was going right with the track of the storm.
Exactly.
So that was an interesting weekend, but we did get a lot accomplished that weekend,
we did.
And it was very interesting to say the least.
I'll definitely say I'll never forget that.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. You panicked pretty bad during that, Anna.
I mean, when I woke up at about 3 or 4 in the morning to use the restroom and the lights were off and my phone hadn't charged, I thought, and it sounded like, the roof was getting ripped off. I thought, if I don't get out of here now, and I looked at the weather and I could go in between two bands, but like I said, I was headed way west. You guys were falling almost straight up the eye.
Yeah, north. Yeah.
Going more northeast. And so,
yeah, because I had gotten up. And I know it was after daybreak because it was light outside, but I had gotten up and noticed that the power was out and it was real hot in the room. There was no AC, obviously. And I'm like, shit, I remember trying to get a hold of you. You already left. You tore out
I
of
was
there.
like, I'm home. I'm already home.
Yeah. So,
well,
but anyway.
I just had to drive to Austin because that's where, my family was. So for me to get from from Houston over to Austin's a lot different than trying to get from Houston all the way up to Dallas. That's a different.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy there for a minute because I had never been in a hurricane before. And so that was the first hurricane.
See, I was like you said, power's out, air conditioning's going to be out. We're not going to be able to charge phones.
If you remember, the damn thing was supposed to miss us and go around the Houston area, and right at the last minute, it shifted direction and come right over us. So, because we remember we were putting in consideration on leaving early because of it, and then I'm like, oh, I think it'll be okay. Well, it wasn't okay. that got pretty bad there for a minute. But it was interesting to see it, but I don't particularly care to go through it again.
Yeah, that's a one.
So,
That's something you only want to do once in this life, hopefully.
right. But anyway,
Yeah.
now, Sully, I know you got to know Darlie Key, you got to know Danelle Fugit real well, which I know them very well as well. And we actually got to go to one of their family festivities not too long ago, which was awesome. Really had a lot of fun. We got to meet a lot more of the family there, and we were able to sit and have a face-to-face conversation with Darlie Key, which I always enjoy talking to Darlie Key.
I do.
See, this is one thing that I give them credit for. If you're going to do this, right? If they're going to speak up for Darlie's innocence, and they live in the Texas area, it's very good. It's good for them to get to know the family, because over the years, I've been able to get to know through conversations on phone and internet some of the investigators and and a couple of the nurses and one of the jurors, two of the jurors, and Cyrilda and Basha. You have to get to know these people, right? This is going to make them feel, this is what they're doing is going to make them feel like she's more innocent. But I commend them for making these attempts to get to know these people, because they're speaking on these people. And it's the same thing that I do on the other side. I've reached out to so many different people. I don't know what to talk about the case. It's nice to be able to have a repertoire with David Neighbors, because he was there. He studied the case. He believes that she's guilty. So there's nothing wrong with them knowing the family, and I'm not going to knock them for that.
You too.
Yeah, and Danelle too. I love them both. I think they're both awesome. And that was really a good time. I was so glad that I was invited to that, and I'm glad that I went. And I think you enjoyed it too.
Oh, of course. Me and Mikey had so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I still got those pictures that you took of me, Bonnie, and Mikey at that party. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, but anyway.
Yeah, can we get through the chit chat, y'all? A little small talk. You guys are jerking each other off here.
We're gonna get going here with the interview, because
you've been 17 minutes just talking shit. Get to the case, man.
Sully had asked for some things to get posted, some pictures and some evidence and different various things, and
different various things.
We're gonna. Me and Sully, she didn't tell me what she wanted to discuss on this stuff necessarily. So I'm going to let her take it away, and if there's anything I can add into it, I will. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with the first one, Sully, and I hope that I have this in the correct order as you requested. I think I did.
Oh, God, I wish you'd fix that mic.
I think so. Yeah, we'll be fine. Right.
So here we go.
Okay, so in my opinion, I feel like over the past, 68 episodes at this point, we have talked about all of the physical evidence that is inside of the house. And obviously, us and other people that you have interviewed believe that there was an intruder in the house that morning that Devin and Damon were unfortunately murdered. And I believe that Darlie was actually the target of.
Not disrespectful, because you won't say that word on your own channels, but you say it on Rich's. You say schmurder on yours because you don't like YouTube can get you for saying that word if they want to.
The attack. So today, what I wanted to do, instead of going over more evidence that we've all seen multiple times through multiple different sources, whether through you, Danelle, different podcasts and documentaries and such, why don't we start looking at some of the people that were directly involved in this trial and some of the problems, conflicts of interest, and questions that I have. So on this first page that you're showing, this does come into the Rowlett Police Department. I believe it's published January 7th, so the day of or after trial starts.
The reference has the case number on it.
And we'll come back around to it. But
I've seen this document before. It's the lab report, and she's right. It does have her case on it, the case number F96. So let's see what she's got to say here.
No, this is hard to see, but you guys can go pull this up. It's out there on the internet.
Just to let you know, Anna, not to interrupt you, I think the other page is Bonnie actually blew up.
Okay, perfect.
I don't know why. Yes, I don't know why she didn't do it on this one, but But go ahead, please.
Just looking at this initially, okay, so we see about 4 or 5 lines down that there's a no result on a pubic hair and the root, and then there is a double allele pattern on the facial hair. So to me, coming in initially, you think, okay, well, as of today, that has never been matched back to anybody in the family, friends of the routiers, nor...
Is she talking about the hairs that couldn't be identified because they didn't have the root to them and then the one did?
Any of the police or EMTs on the scene that day. That makes me think that A, that it does give credence to an intruder, or B, that this crime scene was contaminated.
An unknown hair follicle, it would be common in any house, especially in the summertime. Even if you got your windows open, you're still allowing, dust particles to come in, pollen, even hairs off people walking. So hair follicle alone, well, that tells you that there was an intruder in there. Fuck. Get her out.
It could be, but let me also say this, because and I know the non-supporters love when I use this reference.
Here it goes. Is he gonna say Darley told me? Is he gonna say it?
In my conversations with Darley,
you can't do it. You've only been talking about the case on this. You talked for 16 minutes and 30 seconds, just reminiscing and tickling each other's coochies there. And you're 3 minutes in, Rich, and you said, Darley told me this. Do you realize you're name dropping a convicted killer and expecting us to give any credence to that? Who you talk to when you say that? The supporters? Yes, Rich. We know you go see Darla. We know you talk to her. You starstruck?
Yeah, asked her one. If you could tell me, give me a list of the names of the people that were in her house up to 6 months prior to the murders. And she said, I can't remember that because it was really so.
That sound is not mine. That sound is coming from Sully's headphones.
So many. The only problem with it, I think it's worth investigation, of course.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that could also be anybody, any Tom, Dick, and Harry that could have went in that house for any reason. Somebody could have even tracked that in.
Personally, I do not care how hairy Tom's dick is. Never have, never will.
From the car, or it's hard to say.
The dog. Dogs can track DNA, from a neighbor or something, or track. They walk through trash or something and bring it back into the house. What I do,
they did have one dog out there, and the way I understand it is that this dog did not track a scent. And originally, and thank God, even though Danelle and I don't like each other, because I do not want to be out here giving misinformation in this case if I can help it. But for many years, I always thought that a dog, so did Rich and so did Tara, that a dog, Officer Tom Ward had a dog with him, but he didn't. But the dog that he did have, when I went back and did my research, he went around the perimeter of the house, and he did not smell anything from the inside out there. So I don't know how to take that.
Honest state though is that these were found near the green couch, and that we have to remember that Darlie and Helena vacuumed that area pretty well that day. So the fact that cleaning,
I think Helena vacuumed that area, and even if you're vacuuming, trust me, vacuum cleaner does not, and I repeat, it does not pick up every hair out of your carpet. They don't.
did take place beforehand, and those items are found near the crime scene, like you said, it at least warrants a further investigation.
I agree.
Okay, if there's no DNA found on these hairs, where can they go with the investigation? What can they do? Okay, we have these hairs. We don't know whose they are. Let's go look. Where?
Yeah, I mean, anytime when there's a murder that's this horrendous, when there's uncertainty as to what happened.
Yeah, those regular murders, they don't care. It's just these horrendous ones that need attention.
Clearly, there should have been more investigation than there was.
Well, and I wish, because this came out, I believe.
We had Darren standing at the cemetery going, "We've hired the best, and they're doing the best job we can." Right?
Morning of the trial, that the defense never had the opportunity to hire a forensic analysis, blood analysis, or, back then I don't.
What do you mean they never had the opportunity? They were in talks with Epstein and Labor. What do you mean they didn't have the opportunity? No, they did not. They did not put them on. No, they should have.
I think they had like genealogists like we do today, but the defense never brings this up. Did they just miss it because we know Mulder was up against a massive time crunch?
No, he didn't bring that up because there's nowhere to investigate. Explain where they could investigate. You've got 3 or 4 hairs in the house. There, you can't tell where they came from. Where do you look? Do you have any suggestions of where to look? Could you tell them that and they go look there?
Or where they're not able to get an expert in to, defend that on Darlie's behalf.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
Can't defend it because that doesn't mean anything. They would end up having to testify. I'm doing this live or I'd show you. They would end up having to testify that, hairs don't mean anything, really. They're not going to prove her anything.
Good, very good. What do we got here, Sully?
I mean, that's
not by themselves. There,
just the second half. And of course, you can tell the Routier family has this 24, 26, 24, 25 allele pattern. This document also does show that Devin and Damon are Darlie Routier and Darren Routier's biological children. So,
yeah. Okay.
What's that mean?
Okay. So, this is a woman who testified for the defense. Her name is Mary Rickles. And for those of
oh, Lord, here we go with the Angela Rickles shit.
you that know the Darlie Routier case, you know this because she testified on behalf of the defense in the Routier trial in 1997. Her story states that 2 men were at her front door.
She gave an absolute different description. There was one arrest that was made with the people next door in her house. She had suffered various strokes and heart attacks and was in recovery.
Describes one of them. I don't have the exact description pulled up, but basically describes one of them in like a darker running tracksuit, and the other one as a cowboy with a cowboy hat on,
and the other one a beanie. It wasn't Darlie's description whatsoever. And she was also having problems with her husband at the time. Okay, her story does not make any sense to me because of this. She was watching a scary movie with her 15-year-old, I believe, niece or daughter, but a 15-year-old child. And she said that about 2 in the morning, 1:40ish, I think it was the exact, that somebody was trying to jiggle her front door. And while they were watching the scary movie, she said she got up and turned the porch light on, and these two guys walked away. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. She said that she then went back and sat down and continued to watch the scary movie. And that the men came back and tried to get in her window. They were messing with her bedroom window, I believe. That again, she turned the light on and they left. And the description she gave was nothing like Darling's. She's on recovery. She had bad heart problems, high blood pressure problems.
Now, this knock came to Mary Rickles' door about 2 a.m., so about 30 minutes. And she lives about a mile from the Routier resident.
Is she going to mention the fact that they were watching a scary movie? Have you ever watched a scary movie and your house is real quiet, you got your lights turned down, and you and your kids, even you yourself, watch a scary movie and you hear a little sound off to the side? And if she flipped on the light and they left the first time, then they came back to the bedroom window and she flipped on the light and they left the second time, why did she not call the police?
I want to say it's 0.6 of a mile.
So not even a mile. Somebody comes, knocks on her door. She has kids in the house, and I
think there was only one child.
He tells them
it wasn't somebody knocking on the door. She says she felt like they were trying to get in the door.
To leave off the front door, she hears them going around the back of the house. Now, Mary Rickles did not call 911 that night, which raises a lot of questions, but also I can't say for certain that people always, I've heard my mom say, oh, one time I thought somebody was breaking in, but back then, like, the cops didn't take it seriously. I mean, it was one of those things that you just really didn't call in unless they were able. So, my mom, and I've heard other people living in the 90s, like, I might not have called the police.
Or unless you have a killing a week later, about a mile away from your house, and you want to insert yourself into that by coming up with some bullshit. Yeah, she identified a car as well. She's not telling the whole story. They were watching a scary movie. She said she saw the men twice. She wasn't scared.
Police on this. So we're going to give Mary the benefit of the doubt, but as you move forward, I believe why
you have to give Mary the benefit of the doubt. You're not telling the background of her mental stability. You're not telling the fact that she was in the middle of a nasty type of divorce thing going on with her husband. You're not you didn't even skip over the part where they were watching a scary movie in the dark.
You've been able to tell why she did not call 911. So when we pull up Mary Rickles, we can see this has people she's related to and the different aliases. She's been married a few times and has had multiple children with her husband. So she does have a large family. And you can see some of her known relatives and her age there. So we can move on.
They got the right one. It's been verified.
It says that Mary Rickles is on a government watch list. Now, if you continue moving through that, the reason that she's on a government watch list was because in 1994, I know this is hard to see, But basically, she was stealing prescription pads, had possession of controlled substances, and was using those prescription pads to sell a drug called.
Now, we knew all this. She is laying it out factually. We knew all this, but she's the one that's coming with the actual. I mean, we had a little bit of proof of it before, but this isn't nothing new. We knew that she had a drug history. We also knew that she had a terrible medical history. Now, let's figure out why she's on the government watch. This is interesting.
Furinol, and it was a barbiturate that was taken off the market in 2022. So stay right here for me, Rick.
So since she's having problems with drugs, we shouldn't listen to anything she said. Because remember, Basha had a long history of drugs. She had a criminal record too. Remember, Rich? But we shouldn't listen to Basha because of that. But it's okay to listen to Angela Rickles. You betcha.
Rich, okay? So the deposition date was February 14th, 1994. At this time, she owed a $500 fine to the court, and she was sentenced to 5 years probation. So at the time that these two men knock on Mary Rickles' door, Mary Rickles is on probation. If we keep going forward, Mary Rickles did not stop her crime spree or her.
Okay, so the police come to your door. You had to call them because you need to report something. You don't want to report something because you're on probation? Was she in there smoking pot? Was she in there drinking? Was she in there doing anything illegal? Because the last I checked, it's not illegal to watch a scary movie with your 15-year-old relative. So she didn't say anything about probation. She was still on probation how long was it later? So many days later? Was she still on probation then? When she did call the cops?
For criminal ties after the Routier murders. Here in 97, she gets in trouble for fraud and goes back into the system at the Department of Corrections in 1998 because she would have violated her probation, and she was using bogus check writing and things like that to incur that fraud charge.
Yeah, the fraud charge is not, the fraud charge is an automatic violation of probation, but she's charged with fraud. We don't see anything for a probation violation yet.
Okay, now
this is a municipal court. Would you tell me that all of these are probably misdemeanors? With manufactured controlled substance, fake ID, delivery of controlled substance, delivery of controlled substance 2, unlawful delivery of alprazolam, that's Xanax. Xanax makes you weird. And that's in 2002. It's years after. I thought she had died, but hydrocodone, those are somas. Pretty strong drugs.
We're moving on to Barbara Jovell. I tried to pull a picture of her, but I think a lot of people kind of have seen what she looks like. And if you do go watch the Sully string video, she is in that video. She's the woman with the long hair holding Drake.
Yeah, well, I've said that for the longest time. She's holding Drake's arms up. But they must have had some kind of falling out right after that Sully string party.
Okay, so let's get into Barbara Jovell. So in 2002, she continues on because we know that in 1996 that she was connected to some.
Well, how did they move from Mary Rickles to Barbara Jovell? Did I miss something?
at the Department of Corrections in 1998 because she would have violated her probation, and she was using bogus check writing and things like that to incur that fraud charge.
That doesn't make any sense. That's 2 years after this. I don't understand your point here, but it's interesting. You know, we knew that she had drug problems. We knew this stuff. Now she goes to Barbara Jovell. She doesn't really. She was on probation, so she didn't call the cops. Is that what you were trying to say? She called the cops later. She contacted them later. You realize this. She's still on probation? Now, Barbara Jovell. Oh, yeah. Woo! She was on some goodies. But that kind of reminds me of the statement that Darlie made. She said, people in my family kept giving me pills. And she just took them. There were so many different kinds of pills also found in Darlie's house. The night of the murders, they went back and looked. I think there was something like 30 containers. The white powdery substance on a mirror next to a razor blade. 3 good-sized roaches smoking found in the house. So, yeah, people dabble, man. They sure got their own vices. Didn't you have yours at one time, Sully?
Okay, now we're moving on to Barbara Jovell. I tried to pull a picture of her, but I think a lot of people have seen what she looks like. And if you do go watch the Silly String video, she is in that video. She's the woman with the long hair holding Drake. Okay, so let's get into.
And Helena is with them singing.
Barbara Jovell. So in 2002, she continues on because we know that in 1996 that she was connected to some organization that was manufacturing and selling drugs.
Okay, so where's that at? Let's see. Where is it? Because you're showing 2002.
Now, allegedly, Barbara Jovell, was a user and dealer of these controlled substances. It doesn't always.
She's talking about 2002, late after the murders.
State what the substance is, so I'm not going to assume anything, but she already is kind of involved in this criminal underworld.
No. You're showing stuff from 2002, not 1996. Again, with your just same as your mock trial. Say it, but you're not showing it. You're showing something that happened in 2002.
And she actually goes in to Luce Derrick at the same time Darlie is being.
What happened to the government? I want to know why she's on the government watch list.
Being housed there in county jail for the sale of hydrocodone.
That's true.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and we can see now we're going into 2002. She continues. She has an arson charge. She has criminal mischief. There's the drug she was selling. The controlled substance was.
Does it show convictions or anything on that? Let's see.
Dihydrocodeine, which was a Schedule 2 or 3. In July, she was also found in possession of 28 grams of a controlled substance.
She had all that good shit.
In 2002, she's caught again for selling dihydroxycodone, which at that time you would have only been able to get.
Yeah, so I guess that this means that Darlie is innocent, y'all. Because some years after the tragedy that she suffered, because y'all heard her crying when she spoke to me about how much she loved Devin and Damon. And she was inconsolable several times. She almost had me crying when I had the 2-hour video with her. She loved them so much. And whenever I would say their name, she would just burst into tears. And Rich knows this. So, yes, people do turn to drugs to escape the things that hurt them, that they don't want to think about, the things that they've been through. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I follow that. I get that. Just like Darlie Key's been in counseling, we don't know if they pop a Xanax. Darlie did say her family kept giving her pills, right? Well, let's see where you're going with this. Because you too, at one time, Sully, had a drug habit, a heroin habit, and meth. All right. So should we be listening to anything that you have to say? Or should we commend you for your recovery and your ability to function daily without that shit? That makes you smart, doesn't it?
From a prescription. And we remember that Mary Rickles was known for stealing prescription pads to write illegal drugs on. So let's keep going.
This is another thing that you said she's known for that, but you're not showing how she's known. This is where you get some credibility. Show it. This is interesting that you have about Basha, but we all kind of knew it. We didn't know, we didn't lay it out. We didn't actually dox her criminal record. But that disproves what?
More about Rickles. She has unlawful delegation of a controlled substance.
You mean
criminal
Javel?
mischief. And then if you keep going one more, she actually has an arson charge. So that one is failing to give the correct information or falsifying identification. Class B misdemeanor charges filed. Okay, go one more over. So she was put on probation, and that was revoked in 2005 for some of that. Okay, in 2005, again, she has a deposition for unlawful.
Yeah, but if you would have some more credence as to her testimony in Darlie Routier's case for the prosecution, that you're bringing to our attention, you would have more credence to it if these dates said 1992, 93, 94. This is after the crime. And you have to understand that people that knew Darlie, that loved Devin and Damon, had to live through that. Some of them might not have handled it as well as others.
Full delivery of controlled substances. You can keep going. She was selling alprazolam, which would be Xanax, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that?
In 2005, and the
So, since this lady did this stuff years after the crime, you probably shouldn't listen to what she said on the stand. That makes sense. Boy, am I going to snip that big old forehead you got right there, girl.
hydrocodone. Okay, so keep going. So then she was sentenced, and then she was paroled. Again, falsifying identification. And then she moves in 2008, which I read.
Right here, they got a traffic offense where, let me see, she pled guilty. Is some kind of traffic expense. I bet she has a fucking black car. I bet she does.
Redacted that person's name because they don't have anything to do with this. Okay. So then, like I stated, you can stay on this screen for a little bit or whatever. But in my opinion, when actually skip the DNA report and go to the evidence log, Rich, if you could.
Well, I mean, I want you to, why would you just skip over? you're bringing us to Barbara Jovell and her repeated consecutive dealings with the law that had to do with drugs 10 and 12 years after the case, and then you just leave it there?
Back, are you talking about this one here?
Go one more.
Ah, very good.
Here
very
we go.
Good.
Okay. So right here in the evidence logs that are taken from the Routier house, and it's pulled up larger, is it says 2 baking sheets, 1 large pot, 1 lid, 1 razor blade with white substance, 1 2.5-inch straw, and 1 gray tray. Now, why did Rowlett police never test that substance or give Darren a toxicology screen?
That's a very good question. I don't know why. Maybe there wasn't enough of it there. Maybe they didn't feel it was relevant to the crime because there's so much yuppiness going on in 96. No, that's a good question. Let's see how she answers that. And remember, this substance was in Darley's house too, not just Darren's.
Well, this is very interesting that
You notice that there were 2 straws on that tray.
bringing this up, but like with the other ladies on the panel that had come up, I had asked some of them some pretty tough questions. A lot of them that I knew the answer to, but I'm sorry, I'm trying to ask questions so the public can get a little bit more of a view and opinion of where you're at. So this is what I'll ask you.
Yes.
Now, these are valid points you're bringing up here, and these are facts. But this is what I asked.
She hasn't brought any facts yet. First, she brought up Angel Rickles, and she didn't bring up all of the detailed information in that. Rickles' background, the fact they were watching a scary movie. She left that out. She didn't get it very detailed into it. I'm not a private investigator. And then she moved on to, okay, let's look at Barbara Jovell. She didn't even say she didn't give any report on Barbara Jovell except for show her criminal record after the crime. And then she just left it at that. She just left it there. And, she's knocking her for having a drug problem when she herself had a drug problem at one point. We've seen her little spiel about it. So what's the point? You had that problem before. She had the problem after. First you said, well, she was into a lot of stuff in 96 and blah, blah, blah. But you didn't show anything that said 96. You had to hurry up and skip. You just threw that out there. You stick it to the wall. See if it sticks, right? Well, it didn't stick because we caught that shit. This is what we have that we can show you. But I can tell you that she had this and that in 96, but we can show you this. Right?
Ask of you, what relevance do you believe that it would have showing that there was a white substance in the Routier house on the evidence log, the background of Basha Jovell and the background of Mary Rickles? What do you believe that has relevance into the Routier murder?
I think it's relevant because when you open yourself up to recreationally doing drugs, and I'm not talking.
You have to remember also that this is Darley's home as well. We heard from Basha Jovell that they all 3 did it. I don't understand what you're saying about Basha Jovell's drug history, right? Because she admitted to that back then to me, to everybody that is going to probably watch this video. She said that they had her cocaine, all of them. Okay, 1996. They're in new money. I listened to Stephanie Harlow describe Darren and Darley's financial situation in a way that I've never heard, and it's so simple. She said it was new money. Those were yuppies. Back then it was BMWs, Jaguars, and everybody. You think Harley wasn't doing a little bit here and there?
About maybe going and buying a few joints off the street. Today there's a reason why marijuana has been legalized in several states and cocaine will never be legalized is because
one of the reasons cocaine isn't going to be legalized is because they can come in, they can let you build an empire, they can let you make all kinds of money and start buying shit and getting money and getting businesses and come in and bust you and then take all that shit from you. That's number one thing that why cocaine won't be legal.
It
used to be in Coca-Cola, for Christ's sake.
I think this shows that there was a criminal underbelly that you can directly tie back to the Routiers. I mean, Baja worked for them. Mary Rick.
Baja, all you showed about Baja was that she lied and she does little drugs. You keep saying. She said in '96 that she did this and that and that, but she didn't show anything. What'd you show? Is doing heroin a criminal element? How about needing psychiatric care? How about the damage that it does to a person when they're abused as a child by someone else? Does that make them not worthy of listening to what they say because that happened to them? Is that what you're saying, Miss Sully?
Rickles lived less than a mile. I believe that all of these people knew the same criminal gang, whatever you want to call it, this criminal underbelly that is in.
If Angela Rickles was involved in any way with some kind of drug gang that was in the neighborhood, the last fucking thing she would do after that murder is call the cops and say, some men were knocking on my door that night. Use your fucking brain, man.
Rowlett. And we have to remember that drugs and crime, do not discriminate. Just because you live in a nice neighborhood or you've got a good job.
Or you're 12 years old.
People can still find their way into addiction, into a world of crime. And like I stated, addiction and drugs don't discriminate, race, gender, socioeconomic,
age,
things. And so I think the broader question is, how far was Darren into this world, and did he indirectly open up a vulnerability to that family? Because he's now going through what I would.
If Darren owed anybody, if Darren snitched on anybody, if Darren was way behind and he wasn't nowhere near Front Street with his drug dealer, they would not, and I repeat, not come in his house and kill his kids. They would wait for Darren to drive away, and they'd be sitting off the corner of Darlock. Because there's only they'll be sitting over there by Linda Vista waiting for him to pull out. In his little Pathfinder or his Jaguar, and they'll get behind him. That light, they'll pull up right beside him. They would not mess with his kids.
I think organized criminals to get a substance like cocaine, and the fact that
you don't have to be an organized criminal to get your hands on some cocaine. You were getting your hands on heroin at 12 years old, Sully.
Barbara, who testifies for the prosecution, Mary, who testifies for the defense, these questions are never brought up. I know Barbara Jovel's psychiatric
because they do not make any fucking sense is why.
Record was brought up, but her drug use was never brought up.
You brought it up here. You said that she did this and that, but you didn't bring any proof of that. Same with your SMU shit.
nor was her county stay at Luz Derrick in 1996, in the fall of 1996. So
we know that she was locked up for a moment then. Now, it's the first time she said 1996. Well, Darling was locked up too. So was Charlie Sanford. You know, the juror that backed out of it? He's got a criminal record too. Why don't you take a good look at it? He's gone now. Take a good look at his. So does Robbie Key. Darlie's mom married a thief. So, and your point is what? I don't understand how you're going for these little minute shit like this and trying to make something of it. Because, oh, well, their maid was on drugs and there were drugs in her house. It was her house. Is Darlie so stupid she doesn't know anything about this shit? You think she wasn't snorting it up?
why did
Cocaine leaves your system very quickly after use. If you're not continuously using, say you use for a day, all right, and you're snorting it up, and do about an 8-ball, whatever, and it leaves your system really quickly, sometimes in 24 hours.
did the prosecution fail to even drill Mary Rickles, considering she's on a government watch list for stealing prescription pads?
Well, we don't know when she went on that government watch list. I don't know. Yeah. Why you don't, being on a government watch list doesn't mean that you're some kind of criminal or nothing. They watch everybody.
Ads. Is there just, did they not want that coming out? Because we know Chad Patterson was involved in a drive-by with organized crime.
Not organized crime. It was the Grove Street Gang. There were a bunch of kids.
So in my opinion, it just shows that there could have been a vulnerability that Darren opened this family up to. And also in proximity, his work was next door to another known dealer who I'm sure you've talked about quite a bit.
Well, we don't know that Barry Fife is a dealer, though. You keep saying this person is known. Did you ever buy anything off of him? What's his criminal record like?
Oh, I've talked about him quite a bit. I know Mr. St. John's talked about him quite a bit. So both sides of the aisle, and you're referring to Barry Fife.
I am.
Barry Fife had nothing to do with this. Nothing. And I'm telling you, I just not long ago was told he don't want to talk about it. But I do have his contact. Do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna cut it short, sweet, and simple. That was basically Darren's drug deal.
Now, how do we know this? How do we know this? Would it be his only dealer? Because if you have a coke problem, you don't have just one, because so-and-so might be out. So you need to go over here to so-and-so and get your fix. Now, how do we know this? This is the shit you guys pull.
Right.
But he also...
And she's like, right. Where does it state anything that Barry Fife was his drug dealer? Where? Where is the legal document?
Has a history and a background of other things that are not good.
Not good. Things that are not good. He has a background of poop in his pants or something, because you're not showing us this background. No, he has his background in your head.
Correct.
And I don't know how much further I want to go into that.
Yeah, because you can't. That's why. If you're going to say this, you can do what Sully just attempted to do. Bam, this is his record. Bam, this is his mental thing. Bam. Sully was almost there. She showed it, but she's like, here, just, 10 years after crime, Barbara Elves called drugs. And then went on. I don't know if I want to go into it or not.
to be honest with you,
I
at this
think it's
time.
just statistically that they're all in the same geographic area. They have the same connection.
So does Darlie. You think Darlie? If there was some kind of big drug connection, you think that Darlie wouldn't fucking know about it? She was so far up Darren's ass that he put a gun to his own fucking head. You think she wouldn't know what he was doing? The man was at work all the fucking time, so she could shop, so she could spend $1,000 on Karen Neal's mortgage, so she could go and take that whatever one girl, what's her name? I forget her fucking name. The other one on a cruise, Clark. He was at work. That's where he was.
They're using some of the same controlled substances.
Don't you think his businesses would have been failing if he had a really bad drug problem?
Dealing, manufacturing.
Drug dealers, if you owe them money, they come after you. They whoop your ass. They want to send you a message. These are drug dealers, not sick child killers. They're drug dealers, man. They do dope. They're not interested in killing kids. Nobody says, we're going to do a couple lines. I'm going to kill me a kid today.
They're engaged in fraud, that there was a narrative to the Routier family that was never publicly posted out there during the trial. And I have a problem with that.
Well, I always like to refer to the two New York City homicide detectives that actually went down there and went over everything in the case, interviewed Darlie, interviewed the prosecution, interviewed, some of the defense for Darlie. And I mean, they even went as far as they tried talking to the Raleigh police and they wouldn't talk to him. And they went to Barry Fife and started questioning him. And Barry Fife told
he's talking about on the wrong man. And I've done interviews of the wrong man and they tore her ass up. But no, so they went on the wrong man. I've got that clip on my channel somewhere. But they went over to Automedic, which is across the street. I think it's on what's the name of the fucking street, man? Industrial Lane. Yeah, it's right across the street. And it's still there. You can see where they walked up to it. But Barry Fife, he blamed it right on Darren. He said, I think Darren did it. Well, that's just his opinion. A lot of people, I thought Darren did it at one point because of the affidavit. But I think that's what he's going to talk about.
Two New York City homicide detectives that he always believed Darren did it. He said he thinks Darren just snapped and Darren did it.
Yes.
Because he knew Darren and he didn't know Darlie that well. But Barry Fife had been to their house. There's another guy, what the fuck his name was, too. They went over there, too.
Which I don't believe that.
I don't either.
However, at the end of the episode, both of the two homicide detectives, went back to New York uncertain as to whether or not Darlie was innocent or guilty.
Right, and I broke that video down. There were some things that was left out to them that they did not know about. And I show it to you on my videos, The Wrong Man. I don't remember it right here, but they just weren't certain. No, they weren't certain, and that's understandable because they weren't told everything. There was something in particular. Oh, about the detectives taking the fifth, right? They show this scene in The Wrong Man where they're going, well, I didn't know the detective took the fifth, and the other guy was going, yeah, they sure did. They took the fifth. And that one guy said, well, the one detective, he said, I've never in my 20 years seen a detective take the Fifth Amendment in the stand, right? But have you ever seen a detective of a police department be accused of a crime by a defense attorney in the courtroom either? Have you ever seen that? Show me where that happens. They didn't elaborate on that.
They didn't really know. But I also don't think they dug deep enough. But they also weren't getting the cooperation out of the Rowlett Police Department. I don't think they dug into Barry Fife deep enough.
I think they sat down with the Rowlett Police Department, didn't they?
And I think they were on the right track. I really do, but I don't think that they just got it all done. Now, as far as Mary Rickles is concerned, I'm actually surprised. I'm surprised that she's still alive, because 30 years ago, at the time of the trial, almost 30 years ago, her health was terrible. She had already suffered a stroke
and a heart attack.
And
well, and you have to question why what is seemingly young, healthy girl that we showed you her picture of, that was out of her senior yearbook, you know, and
now if I was to do something like that, which I'm glad, because I've only seen the one little video of Mary Rickles in front of her house there where Joe Munoz went to her house. But if I was to do that and put up somebody's criminal record and put up their picture, oh my God, look at him. He's harassing these people. Oh God, he's stalking them. That's okay for you, right?
10 years go, you know, one has to speculate, are drugs involved? Because most young, healthy people, of course, there are exceptions, don't have strokes and heart attacks unless they've been using.
Well, I mean,
you can't really say that. That's not fair, because you're talking about all these drugs that Basha, who's much older than Miss Rickles, years later, and where's her heart attack, stroke?
Get a congenital condition that could cause that as well, but
Rich.
I mean, let's look at it. You know, do I believe that Angela Rickles, her situation with her alleged claim that her home was broken in, they attempted to break into her home that night? Do I find that to be relevant? It's possible, but I don't know.
Well, you know, if you look into the source, you have to, you got to look at the source of it. There was an arrest made next door. Somebody had a warrant. She identified the wrong car, a car that belonged there. She gave the wrong description. And frankly, she didn't act scared. You know, and Sully tried to say, well, she was on probation. So what? She called him later. She was still on probation. So where was that point? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Now, as far as Basha Javel is concerned, and again, I even talked to Darley about this. I said, Darley,
there we go with this shit, Rich. You can't
think that Basha could have been involved in this thing? And she said, no, absolutely not. She told me if she had found out that she was involved in it, she would be extremely surprised. So she did tell me that. Yeah,
Basha told me, and the 276,000 people that saw that video, that's what the views were on it when that channel got shut down. She told everybody that Darley and Darren and the Barry Fife, there's another one too, would all do cocaine together. And cocaine does leave your system pretty quickly. I don't think what she's mentioning here about the razor blade and the drugs and stuff, because she's not going on to show, in the evidence log, she's not showing the numerous amount of different pills that were removed from Darley's house. She's not talking about that. Now, I don't think that the drug use has anything to do with it at all. Darley was not on drugs when she did this. Some intruder was not crazed on drugs, or there would have been way more evidence of an intruder. You do have some speculation with the sock.
Javel does not have a very good history with things, which
now you showed us after the crime, and you're going to say now you're going to talk about her history, but you're not going to put anything up on the screen to back up what you're saying. I thought Sully was going to show us something here. I was interested. I thought she had a point. Because so what? Sully, heroin's illegal.
I mean, Mr. St.John had 2 interviews with Basha. One of them was several hours long. One of them was a fairly short interview, but they were both really, really good. I have to give Mr. St.John credit where it's due. He did a good job on that interview, and it was probably one of the best interviews on the World Wide Web concerning the Darlie Vertier case, in my opinion.
Wow. Yeah.
But I believe, he had a lot of hits on it too. But probably a third of them were from me. I probably listened to it a couple hundred times. I drove.
Well, the thing of it is if you, as a YouTuber, visit a video and you video, it only registers your channel hitting it once. It's one view.
Bonnie up the wall with that. But I wanted to absorb as much as I could of the things she was saying. This is my opinion. I believe that those 2 interviews are a mix of truth, fantasies, and lies. That is what I believe. I'm not saying I'm right, but that's what I believe. Now, many of the things she said on that interview, I took to guard, and I told her. Some of them she said was true. Some of them she said was not true. Case in point, Basha Javel said that Damon was out in the backyard playing with a stick the night before the murders transpired. So it would have been the afternoon of the.
No. She didn't say it was the night. Yeah, it was the afternoon of the 5th.
Yeah. And Basha said she went out there, see Damon play with a stick in the backyard, and said, Damon, what's the matter? Because he looked.
She said that the reason, this is what Basha told me, she said that Darlie and Darren had been fighting very hard all week long. And I'm going to say what I got to say before I let him say what he's going to say. They had been fighting all week long, and she had been down on the couch for a week. She said she came in there, and Darlie was in the kitchen fixing that chicken dinner. She was literally sharpening her knives. I said, oh, no, and then to cut the chicken. But she did say that. And then she said that Darren came in and they started arguing. So she slipped out the glass doors behind the couch. She said that Damon was out there in the back just kind of, digging around with the stick. And then he turned around and he came up to her and, she kind of had him at his legs. And I want to spend the night with you. And she was explaining that she had to work and all that, and then why would you want to spend the night with me? And he said because mommy's being mean to me. And then she said Darlie came out there and interrupted that conversation. That's what Basha told me.
Down, he looked sad. And she said he had asked her if he could spend the night at her house. And Basha said, why would you want to spend the night at my house? Well, because mommy's being mean again. And Basha Jabel, during that particular interview, I would say through about 80% of it, she bawled her eyes out. And she wasn't just wiping a couple tears, she was bawling.
I was just saying, I had to get to the point where I didn't say Devin or Damon's name in a question, because every time I did, that provoked her, and she was already Polish, which but Sully says, well, the court, she needed a translator. No, I needed a translator because I don't understand Polish. She was hard to understand in the first place, and every time I said like Devin or Damon, she would just bust out, and she turned down David Chase, wanted to do an interview with her, and she chose to do it with me, and I had to pick at her for a little while. And she told me at the beginning of it, the only reason she did it is she knew that I was doing this for Devin and Damon. I don't care about views. I don't care. People could come and look at my stuff, and I've done my job as far as being sure that truth gets out there. I'm not trying to make a big podcast, be internet famous, none of that. Not with this case.
And I really kind of
And I will
felt
say, I
bad
do
because
believe that Barbara loved those children.
I do believe that. I do
Yeah.
believe she loved those little boys. Okay. However, I have heard from several people that the boys didn't particularly like her. But I have been told, and I
Well, you see, this all goes back to the whole thing. Now they have to explain why would Darlie's best friend, that was Darlie's best friend, why would they be mad at her now? Why would they have a falling out? Well, it was because Basha got on the stand and answered the questions that were asked of her. She didn't even want to get on the stand. She told me. She didn't volunteer any information because I told her, I said, well, if Damon really did that, you should have told him that. I said, why didn't you tell him that? And she said, well, I only wanted, she still loved Darlie. And she didn't speak badly of Darlie outside of she felt like, she knew something was going to happen in the house. I don't know. I believed everything that Basha told me. Basha had no reason to lie 20-some years later. She could have just remained silent as she did everyone else that asked her for an interview. And I do know that after she gave that interview, she was relentlessly attacked by supporters. Because I was going to try to do another one. I was going to try to have Tammy. She was relentlessly attacked by supporters. So where's this falling out? I want to hear what that's about.
do believe that Barbara did love those little boys. Now, I took that to Darla, and I said, Darla, I don't know. Basha said that Damon said you were being mean against you. What are you talking about? And I told her the story. And she said, that is an absolute lie. She said,
Well, see, the thing of it is when Barbara told me this was happening, there was no one in the backyard at that second besides her and Damon. So how she know that's an absolute lie?
said she never at any time that evening went out of the house and went outside. She didn't do it. That's an absolute lie. She was in the house.
That's correct. If you go and look, Basha talks about her night being there. She said that Darla gave her a beer, and she drank the beer. And then it ends there. She didn't say anything about going out back in her testimony. They're right that it wasn't mentioned in the testimony. So Darlie would be the one who would know if Basha stepped outside or not.
House with me the whole time from the minute she got there until the minute she left. And I mean, Darlie's face was beet red. She was pissed. And I said, well, Darlie, wait a minute. I said, could she have been mistaken? Do you think that maybe this was maybe a day or two before or maybe a week before? Maybe that.
Nope. She told me that the reason she stepped outside is because Darlie and Darren were in the kitchen arguing. It made her uncomfortable. So it couldn't have been a day before. She also told me that she was sharpening up her knives to make that dinner with. So it couldn't have been the day before.
Maybe that's what happened. And she said, absolutely not. She said, my boys didn't particularly like Basha.
So if your boys didn't particularly like Basha, why would you let her handle Drake at one of the worst times in his life?
And that was the first time I had heard that. And that I had heard from some other people as well that know Basha, that knew the boys, that knew Darlie. They even told me that.
Well, and to take it even a step further, that afternoon when Basha and Darren return to the Routier house after work and Basha picks up Helena, they are pulling out and they see a man looking in the garage who...
No.
They say he was looking in the garage. They did not say that.
When they were pulling out and going up Eagle Drive,
he was speeding by. And Helena made a comment that she didn't know that there were black people in this neighborhood.
suspicious black car passed them at a high rate of speed going toward the Routier house. But if you remember, Helena was wanting to get the hell out of there.
Right.
Because BryanSt.John went into the house. She was done working. She went to the house. And she said, first thing she did, she went to the refrigerator. She got a beer.
No.
Right.
And she started
She didn't go to the refrigerator to get a beer. She said Darla gave her a beer. Darla just gave her one.
drinking a beer. And she noticed Darlie looked very disturbed. She said Darlie was pacing back and forth, speaking under her breath and things like that. And I asked Darlie about that. I said, Darlie, what happened? What made you do that? She said, it was that guy that called not long before Boston got here about Darren's car being in the parking lot. And he said that guy was calling me.
So they're verifying, because they were fighting in the kitchen. That's what Baja told me.
Name, calling her the C name, the B name. Tell your husband to get this effing car out. She said he was just vile, screaming at her, swearing at her. Well, Darlie's mad because Darlie had already been mad because of Darren's play toys that he wasn't taking care of. Remember, that's why Darlie was sleeping on the couch, remember? And and she goes, yeah, I was pissed. I was really mad. And I said, well, what were you carrying with you going back and forth to the rooms? I said, BryanSt.John said, you had something in your possession. What were you carrying? She said, oh, I wasn't carrying anything. Because it was true. I was mad. And I was stomping around. You bet I was. But the names that guy called me, and because Darren was irresponsible.
Asia didn't say anything about her carrying anything. I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to tell you what about this video. Because there's lots of people that want to see it. There's lots of people that would love for it to be back on YouTube again. It's never going to be back on YouTube. But it is recorded. And it is put up. I can tell you that for a fact. So think. If Darla got a new trial and Baja was a witness.
Really mad.
Well, and I think that goes back to Darren is not able to keep up with mortgage payments at this time, with his toys at this time.
I mean, if you look at their base.
Darren is not able to, but at the same time, they're able to pay Karen Neal's mortgage, trips to Cancun, $12,000 drapes, $6,000 spa, $6,000 fountain, $9,000 spa, $10,000 Jaguar, relatively new Pathfinder, but he couldn't pay the mortgage.
Statement, which I actually have. I actually have it on.
If he can't pay his mortgage, he must not be doing that much drugs.
Here, I could actually pull it up if you want.
I just think if somebody was spending money inside of that house, and people like to say that it was Darlie that was blowing through all the money, and we know Darlie.
I can see Darren at the drape store. Let me see what I did there. I can see Darren at it just came to his head that he wanted some $12,000 fucking drapes in his house. He also wanted a $6,000 watch for his wrist.
Like to shop, but I also know Darlie liked a good deal. Her jewelry, her furs were from second-hand stores and pawn shops. Who do you think was really blowing through that money with his toys, with his habits? I mean, it's hard to put.
No. No. Mark my words, no.
The entire financial situation onto Darlie when it seems like Darren might have been spending money on things he shouldn't have been spending money on.
Well,
like what? Because they only found a powdery substance in his house. They didn't find a whole bag full of dildos. They found Playgirl magazine, not Playboy.
Another thing too, the first thing that Darren did once he ran out of the house and ran across the street and went over to Terry and Karen Neal's house is he went in their bathroom and washed himself up. Now, I'm trying to give Darren the benefit of the doubt here. I mean, if I had, I have children, I have grandchildren. If I had their blood on me after seeing something like, I'd probably want to get it off me.
And as soon as they got to Beller, they washed their blood off of Darlie. Generally don't want blood on you if you can help it. Oh, got blood on me, sink right there.
Just going to be honest with you. But it's also that's part of the crime scene. That's part of the evidence. But when you got that kind of craziness going on,
his clothes should have been. His clothes should have been bagged.
There were pictures taken of him. He's photographed in the nude
and tagged while police watched him remove them. However, on these evidence logs, you can see that they get picking up off the kitchen counter.
Well, keep in mind now, when Darren was at Baylor University Hospital in Dallas, he was told to take his clothes off. He was completely nude, and they did take pictures of him.
He was the first subject, the first suspect.
Which was the right thing for the police department to do, to see if he had any injuries or any or whatever. So, they definitely did right by doing that.
But they didn't until later collect the original pair of jeans he was wearing when he first ran down the stairs.
There's one interview where Darren says he don't remember if he put his jeans on or not. Yeah, I'm checking with the chat now. Hi, Christy, Blind God. I haven't even been looking at the chat. You've been waiting for this one? Oh, there were comments? See, I thought it was pre-recorded. He knows the IP's taking up her case because he has sent stuff to them. They're just wanting all the help. The IP doesn't have her case, but they've got it on like the back burner in case it looks like she's going to be found innocent. Then they're going to jump in and say they've got it. So they've got it on a back burner. But anyways, let's listen to some more.
Well, but Darren changed his story a couple times. Darren said he ran downstairs with his blue jeans on, and then I got him stating that he ran. Not that I got him stating, but he had stated also that he didn't know if he was naked or had clothes on or whatever when he ran downstairs.
Well, and as we've given Darlie the benefit of the doubt, Darren, whether or not this was Darren's fault, directly, indirectly.
I can't believe you guys are saying that this is Darren's fault indirectly or directly at all. If you guys are such good investigators, all right, you claim to be investigators. Darren said he asked multiple people to break into his home. Darren said he asked multiple people to get a U-Haul and break in his home and take all of his belongings, blah, blah, blah. Multiple people. How come you guys are not pressing Darren for those multiple people? And if you notice, at 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:15 in the morning on June 6, 1996, in Rowlett on Eagle Drive, there was no fucking U-Haul.
Correctly, whatever. We know the kids weren't supposed to be down there that night, and Darren probably has some memory issues due to trauma as well.
Could be.
Why were they supposed to be down there that night? There was no plans for them to be down there, apparently.
I've always tried. There are things about Darren I do not like, clearly, but I also try to keep in mind that, he lost 2 of his children that day too. And also lost his wife, his business, everything.
Was really involved. Why did he leave his children down there with Darlie that night? would he, if he had said, okay, like I'm ready for a divorce, or I'm in debt, come get my
No, she's the one that said that she was ready for divorce. They conveniently left that out, though.
wife, she has an insurance policy, I'll pay back my debts with that, or whatever. These are just this is me just saying something.
The day of the killings of Devin and Damon and the attempted killing of Darlie Routier, they had over $2,000 in their bank account. And you got to remember, this is 1996. That was a pretty halfway decent amount of money.
Yeah.
So they say, he's in a lot of debt. Now, he might have had credit card debt. I'm not denying that.
Who doesn't? Who hasn't overspent?
Well,
especially when
what I'm saying.
No, I keep my credit card. No. I get to a certain point on them, and I don't spend on them until I pay them off, and I do way more than minimum payments every time. I don't like my credit card.
What I'm saying is he wasn't penniless.
Right.
And they tried to make it sound like he was busted dick broke.
Right.
Now they did find in the waste paper basket. They did.
So if they had $2,000 in their account, she was trying to say that he was spending money that they didn't have on things he wasn't supposed to buy. If it was that bad, they wouldn't have $2,000 in their account.
Find the mortgage on the home that was behind, but Darren had paid it. But they had tried to say, "Oh no, look here behind our house."
He paid it and then threw away the note or whatever.
Yeah, and I don't think that it was necessarily that Darren didn't have the money to pay the mortgage. I think the problem is he wasn't a very responsible individual.
Yeah.
Darren wasn't a very responsible individual. He graduated at the top of his class. He went through DeVry, he was also a decorated football player in school. He got his computer tech stuff done at DeVry. He worked for a company for a long time and learned the trade. Then he worked for both of them for a while. And then he was able to purchase a beautiful home over on Bond Avenue for his new wife. 2 days later, they bring in a new child. He works harder, even so. They're already with him at times, putting those little test strips together. But it's all based on his idea. And then he's able to remove himself from Cuplex and start his own little company called Technique. He works a little bit harder there for a while. Then he's able to buy his wife and kids a beautiful house and give them everything that they want because he's not very smart.
So, and I think Darlie was starting to get increasingly worried about what Darren was doing with his time and money when he should have been at the house with his family and his new baby and taking those boys on fishing.
Now, she called him at his work, Sully. She didn't call him at the bar and ask him to come home. She didn't call him at the crack house and ask him to come home because he needed help with kids. She didn't call him at some whore's house and asked him to come home. She called him at fucking work and said, I need you home to take care of these kids, or I'm just going to kill myself.
Trips and doing other things than what he made.
Darlie said I could share a story. I mean, there have been some things that she has told me that she asked me to keep quiet, which I always have, and she knows she can trust me with that. But I always told her during...
I'll tell you what, if you're going to visit a convicted killer on death row and they tell you, I want to tell you this, but I need you to keep it quiet, doesn't it raise a red flag?
Face-to-face conversations when I visit, I say, Darlie, and I say this every time, Darlie, if there's something you don't want me to say on the podcast, you have to make sure you tell me. Because if you don't tell me, I'm going to tell everybody. And she's very good about telling. Most of what she tells me that I don't put out there is not about the case. It's about what's currently going on.
Right.
Don't tell nobody that, But I had asked Darlie about the drugs. And first of all, I asked her, I said, Darlie, I said, Basha Javel said you were doing cocaine. Darren was doing cocaine. She was doing cocaine. And I said, Basha had also made mention that she was asked to have a sexual threesome with her and you and Darren.
I don't know where he got that from, and this is the second time that I've said this, but to the best of my recollection, Basha Jovel did not speak of an affair with Darren and Darlie and herself. If she would have, I would have cracked my ass up because they're a young couple, right? Basha's nothing to look at. If they were going to choose to have a threesome, they would have had it with somebody much more attractive. But Basha did not say this to me. I don't know where he's getting this from.
And I said, is that true? She said, that is absolutely not true. Said, I've never done cocaine in my life. And I said, there was also marijuana in the house. And now, she never denied that she didn't do marijuana. She never denied that, but she also never confirmed it. But she swore up and down she didn't have threesomes with people, which has been an allegation put out.
No, the threesome, the swinging thing that they were talking about, it didn't come from Basha. It came from, I believe, Mercedes Adams, as a matter of fact. The whole thing with her and Karen Neal and Terry Neal was supposed to go on a boat trip somewhere. That wasn't Basha. Basha never told me that.
Over the years, she swears up and down she's never done cocaine. And I said,
well, swears up and down she's never knifed her kids to death neither, Rich.
And her talk screen at that time showed
it's negative across the board.
Cocaine or any.
Yep, the talk screen did show that she wasn't on any type of drug that night that was illegal. But we also know that cocaine leaves your system pretty quickly, very fast.
Another drug besides the weight loss drug.
Well, yeah, the toxicology report, which I have, I'm pretty sure you have it too.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that's easy to find.
It's negative across the board. Yeah. So even if Darlie was smoking marijuana, she couldn't have been a regular smoker because marijuana stays in the body for up to 30 days, longer. And even longer if you're a persistent everyday smoker.
Now, if you only smoke once or twice a week, it might not be in your system. It'll show up like a trace amount. Yeah. I can't see Darlie being a heavy drug user. But I can see her dabbling. Remember, she said, I will not apologize for loving my husband. In reference to all those dongs that they found in her. You know, she had a whole bunch of dildos, different colors and stuff. And her response to that was, I will not apologize for loving my husband. So what kind of things would she try to enhance her sexual life or romantic life or even just some alone time with her husband?
Cocaine, on the other hand, usually stays in the system between 5 and 7 days, unless
cocaine stays out. It gets out of your system quicker than that, I believe. I'm not going to look it up.
If you're a heavy user, it might go up to 10.
I was going to say, or if you're a very small person with a fast metabolism and you do it for a night, I mean, it could be out in 24 hours. But like you said, anywhere I think from 24 hours.
That's damn rare. I've never seen a cocaine test.
That'd be like a 100-pound, guy or girl with a fast metabolism that, one night before.
Just reading it, I did a quick search on it. Cocaine can be detected in the blood for about 48 hours after the last use. Urine. Cocaine metabolites can usually be detected in urine 2 to 3 days after the last use. However, urine drug tests might be positive up to 2 weeks after the last use for heavy cocaine users. That's AI.
Or it might not pick up the next day.
But I had asked Charlie, I said, what was Darren doing? I said, I don't think it's a big secret that they found evidence of cocaine being used in the house because I wanted to know who was doing it. I told Darlie, I said, if you were doing it, tell me you were doing it. People make mistakes. I've done that crap in my life before. I'm not proud of that, but I have.
Well, it's also like just because maybe Darren wanted, I don't know.
I would ask Sully because she mentioned something about there were the criminal element is involved with drug use and stuff like that. There'd be some shady people around you. Have they legalized marijuana in Texas yet?
No, I wasn't there. I don't know the extent of Darren's drug use.
I know you've talked to Darlie on the phone. So
yeah,
I know you have. I've been in your presence when you have talked to Darlie on the phone.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of sitting down with her a foot away from me, and on many occasions, which every time I go down there, it is always awesome. I'm always afraid I'm going to walk away depressed because she's in there, But every time I go away, she's got my spirit so high and so lifted up.
Rich, you're going to hate me for this. You're afraid, you don't want to get too high. You had your spirits lifted up. I think you were probably afraid to stand up after leaving the visits. Maybe I'm pitching the tent there, buddy.
I feel great when I leave there. And I bet not a lot of people can say that.
I would not say that. I never feel great when I left my son's visits. They're depressing. You feel sorry for them, no matter what they've done, especially if you feel like somebody's innocent, which I know my son's guilty, but it still sucks to go there, sit there. After about an hour of being at a visit in a prison, I'm ready to go. What am I supposed to say to him? How you been? Really? What's going on in your world? Yeah, he's fucking doing life in prison, man. I don't like going to see him. I don't like it. It's depressing. But I'm not attracted to him either.
Yeah.
But, about other inmates or whatnot. But anyway, I had asked her, and she said that Darren had started coming home acting really weird. That was her exact quote. Kind of like, paranoid looking around. I said, "Oh, that's probably cocaine." And he said, "Sure sounds like it." And she goes, "Well, I at the time I didn't know for sure." And she had went over to Basha Javel's house, and of course, Basha didn't say this. And
somebody snorting a few lines in the 90s is not going to get your kids killed.
The St.John interview, but said she went over to Basha's house and played stupid until Darren got there, and then she put her finger in her face, and I quote, said, you or your friends ever tell my husband that shit again, I'm turning all your asses in, quote unquote.
And even after that, even after Basha was told that, right, according to Rich, you're a drug dealer, and if you sell that to my kid again, I'm going to put you in jail for it. Could you watch my son for a little while, please?
And she said Basha was very submissive to that. Okay, darling, no problem. Won't happen again. I swear to you.
Okay, so is Barry Dickey, or no, not Barry Dickey. I said that wrong. Barry Dickey is the guy that removed the white noise out of the 911 tape. Is Barry Fife the drug dealer for Darren, or is Basha the drug dealer for Darren? Because you said that he was getting it from Fife. But now you're saying he was getting it from Beja. Free Darlie, y'all. I mean, you have convinced me.
And that was only a couple of weeks before the Routier murders. And she had also went and confronted some other people that Darren was involved with. Dangerous.
But she doesn't mention these dangerous people that she had problems with. She didn't mention any of that to the defense, to the detectives, to nobody. She didn't mention any of these dangerous people. She waited until a couple non-licensed people years later would have a YouTube channel and say that she did this.
Dangerous people, very dangerous people. And she was unaware of how dangerous they really were. He even told me, so Rich,
So are we? We're unaware of how dangerous those people really are because nobody's ever said anything about them, who they are, and why they're dangerous. That's just for your ears only, Rich.
I was 26 then. She was,
Yeah.
you know, if I knew now, well, if I knew then what I knew now, I never would have went about it that way. But you know, my marriage was going downhill. Things were going downhill. I was worried about Darren. Of course, I'm going to try to find.
She's telling you that your marriage is going downhill, but she's telling the investigators that their marriage is fine.
Find out what's going on.
Well, and you know, like you were saying, when you're dealing with people that are selling controlled substances and cocaine, you're getting into a much darker, deeper level than, you know, maybe going and buying like marijuana. You know what I mean?
No, a drug is a drug is a drug. It's illegal. One drug has a little more of an effect on you than the other. One is ingested a different way than the other. One costs more than the other, but they're both illegal. One will get you more time in jail than the other, but you can break the RICO Act with both of them. A drug is a drug is a drug. You also have the criminal element when you're dealing with heroin at 12 years old.
I mean, like cocaine is more likely to be involved in violent crimes, and I'm under the belief that that the intruder that broke into the house that morning was probably also under the influence of some stimulant.
Well, if they had enough stimulant to keep them high, then the motivation would more likely be a robbery. Grab that stuff and leave so we can get more. Grab that stuff that we see. When they get in the house, right? They sneak in. They're doing their little creepy crawl. The creepy crawl, like Manson's family used to call it. Manson's family used to go in people's houses. They used to break in people's houses and move their furniture around and leave while they were home. But anyways, they're doing a little creepy crawl in there, and they say, "Oh shit, there's two kids laying right there and a woman. We better get the fuck out of here." And they just take that stuff and leave and go get some more dope.
It's possible.
I mean, it's just
I don't.
with
You
profiling.
You normally don't kill
cocaine
people
and
when you're on cocaine.
amphetamines. Yeah.
Well,
you don't really want to kill people when you're on cocaine. You want to drink a lot. You want to fuck. You want to drive fast. Cocaine does not make you angry. It doesn't bring out the devil in people. It just doesn't. I know this. Yeah. The perfect cocaine buzz is, while you're driving a big Cadillac right off the dashboard while you're getting service driving down the street at 90 miles an hour. That's what you want when you're doing coke.
Cocaine and amphetamines go hand in hand with blitz attacks. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
I can't say that for sure, but
cocaine will make you too paranoid to go into a window where you just saw two cages from dogs and cats. You see that shit? You say, fuck that shit. You jump over that fence, squeal, and you got to go.
Just the blitz attack, the violence of it.
They swing back and forth from Darren to a random attack. They don't know.
Would say that there's a likelihood that the person that broke into the home was also under the influence of drugs or alcohol, because we know a lot of times these people are not sober, stone cold sober when they commit these acts.
Yeah, they probably were high on something. But here's the thing. When you're high and you're incapacitated to the point where you want to climb in a window and kill, you're going to make mistakes that show that you were there. You're going to be seen. You're not going to be able to get over a fence so easily. You're not going to be able to run down the alley so fast. You'll be seen. You'd give yourself away if you were fucking wasted. Pulling that shit that they did at Darley's. If you want to play it that way.
And adding on to that, we also have to think about Darren and his insurance scams. So who was he going through that for? That also ties him to the,
Well, Basha also spoke on that Rich, can you enlighten them on what Basha told me during that interview with me? Because you were talking about the interview and stuff she told me earlier. Tell them what she told me about the insurance scam, buddy.
This dark underbelly. And, I just think that maybe even Darren was dealing with people that he had no idea that what they were capable of. And if he'd gotten in too deep or said something, or Darlie said something to the wrong people, I am not going to victimize.
Do you think if Darren owed people drug money that he would be rushing off to the fucking bank to borrow $5,000 for Darlie and a trip? Because I'd have been like, fuck no, we can't afford that shit right now. Let me get through this right here, blah, blah.
Darren and say that because a person hypothetically is using cocaine, that they deserve to have their children murdered inside of their home. So
I agree.
Like, although I'm saying he might have opened up a nefarious door that opened up the family to maybe possible criminals that knew where he lived and what the inside of that house looked like, does not mean that Darren wanted his family attacked. And I don't believe if he thought that something
Darren's not saying who he bought dope from. He's not saying the multiple people he asked. So what does he really want? He never said. And the family's Mama Key's not beating his door and saying, motherfucker, you need to tell us who you talked to and who you were dealing with. Or you can rot in hell. And I'm going to go back to dealing with these supporters, these non-supporters on Facebook and lying to them. But until then, you need to tell. She should be. They should be at his fucking door. Too late now.
Somebody was going to come into that house, that he would have left the children downstairs with Darlie while she was sleeping down there.
He didn't leave the children downstairs with Darlie. The boys brought their blankets downstairs. They decided that they could sleep down there.
And Rich, who is the only person that knew that Darlie was sleeping downstairs?
Darlie. Darren knew she was down there.
Well, I know Basha Javel knew, but I don't know everybody who knew. I really don't know the answer to that.
I don't remember what Basha said about her sleeping on the couch for a week. I know that she's not there much after late at night when Darlie goes to bed. So I don't remember that.
I wish I did. I
mean, I think that Darlie's mother knew that they were maybe kind of having some issues, but we know that Barbara knew that she was sleeping downstairs because.
Well, I think the bark was worse than the bite. I mean, Darlie even told me in a roundabout way. She said, I was just trying to get Darren to realize I wanted him to be more responsible.
Exactly.
And so it's true. She did threaten it. She did threaten for a separation. And there were other occurrences.
Rich, why can't you get around, why they didn't talk about that separation to the police? They didn't give the police the description of what happened that day. They started off by omitting facts. The both of them.
Just for that happened. One time that happened, and Darren put a gun to Darlie's face.
Now, that was just written in a book, but the way I heard it was Darren put the gun to his head.
No, I'm wrong. Forgive me, I'm wrong. That's not what happened. They were actually at Tiffany, and Darlie was barking at Darren about something or other, and Darren got a little upset, and he pulled out his. Well, she had picked up the Rolodex off the desk and whipped it at his face, and he put a gun right.
That's because she's not violent. She wouldn't hurt anybody that she loves. She wouldn't hurt a fly. She was just the sweetest thing. They had the most wonderful marriage. I'm asking Nicole to throw a Rolodex at me and see if it does anything for me. Darlie's just the kindest person ever. They had a wonderful. Dream of me.
Face. Darlie told me this, and she said, Darren, we both know you're not going to do anything with that. And then there was another time she had threatened separation. He put a gun to his own head. And then,
but I find the whole gun thing, because it wasn't brought up at trial, nothing like that. It's kind of hearsay. Another thing that gets me is there was no gun found in the house on this list that you see here.
And then, I mean, yeah, so clearly there was some problems going on.
Well, and I will say that in the grand scheme of things, this was Darren's wake-up call for him to get himself out of this lifestyle.
Are you fucking kidding me? This is his wake-up call to get him out of this lifestyle. He probably still does coke. It's a lifestyle of casual use. You don't have kilos of cocaine coming out of the closet there. You got a white substance on a razor blade. You don't have, fucking Pablo Escobar up in this bitch. No. You're taking something that was very common in the 90s for rich yuppies to be doing. It's not popular now. People don't like the shit. And you're coming up with Darren needs to change his ways based on this. Darlie needed to change her fucking ways on what she allowed in and out of her house then.
And
you know what? I believe
rededicate back to Drake and helping Darlie get out. For Mary Rickles, for Barbara Jo Bell, for other people whose names we've said, they have decided to continue going in this lifestyle. That has been a choice that they have made, despite what they may or may not know.
Well, you said that you went through recovery for your heroin addiction and you still smoke weed today. A drug is a drug is a drug. You're changing one for another. That doesn't, no, moving from Colorado to Texas, geographical change, that doesn't work either. You went from one to another to another. You went and how do we know that you're not relapsed right now because you're a drug addict, right?
Oh,
yeah. So, and like I said, I feel bad for Darren in a lot of ways because these things transpired. I mean, his guilt level has to be really bad, and I give him credit though. He's done well for an upper middle-aged man. I mean, he has a very successful business out in Lubbock. He owns a beautiful home.
Actually, he sold that house, Rich. He sold that house for $869,000, and now the only address that you get on Darren Routier is to a storage shed.
And he's done pretty well. So I mean, he, and of course he has his new wife Cindy, and he's really kicking
Not new
butt out there. He's doing really, really well.
Yeah, but while Darren has been able to thrive, Darlie has been
locked up for a crime that she committed.
Has made that sacrifice, really, in my opinion, on Darren. Like,
she's sacrificing for Darren. Well, I thought her kids are her fucking life. Why would she sacrifice for Darren when she's got Drake out there that needs her? Especially when he had leukemia. Why didn't she just pop up with it then and get herself out of there and be there with her son?
He's been able to pick up and move on, and she can't.
Well, he didn't kill his kids. She did.
Well, not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
Hopefully that'll be changing soon. But anyway, we are at our limit, Dolly. We are up to an hour. This has been an outstanding podcast. I'm sure
outstanding podcast. All right, look at the way she presented stuff. First, she came up about Rickles, and then she totally got off of Rickles and showed us Jovel's convictions after the crime. She didn't elaborate on anything. It was like I got this, and I got this, and let's talk about this. Let's talk about a little bit of powder found on a tray a gray tray, a little powder found on probably a McDonald's tray or something like that, and you turn that into Darren was dealing with all these fucking people because there's a little bit of power on it that he needs to change his lifestyle. Darren never shot a needle in his fucking arm one time. Sully.
It's going to get questioned, and like I said, within the hour of me putting this up, I'm sure, people are going to, go through it and, make their comments, which they have the right.
Provides a little bit of new information that people might not have known before. Where, like I said, we can put an intruder in the house. My goal now, moving forward, especially when doing interviews with us, is what can we do with the information that we have? And I guarantee
you don't have any new information. This is all shit we knew before. The bottom line, with the tray, 1, 2, 2.5 straw, right? We knew all this. And we knew that they started implicating Darren right at the time of the last defense. Remember, I was a Darla Gutierrez supporter in with the big time supporters, including the family. And back in the day, you would dare accuse Darren of this in any way, shape, or form. And now you're getting away with it because everybody did it but Darlie. Anybody but Darlie. Darren need to change his fucking ways, that motherfucker. Worked so hard to give her everything she wanted. He can't do a fucking line. The fuck out of here.
You that answer is in those files, and you know that, Rich.
Yeah, definitely is. And another thing I wanted to say before we go, Sully, is I would like to tell people like Pam Collins and BryanSt.John, and I know both of them. I've had conversations with both of them. Numerous, I should say, over the years. It's been quite some time since I've talked to either one of them. However, they're both having.
No, Rich, we stopped talking when you started bringing these clowns on your panel. They come up with this dumb shit. See, I know that you do it. You may or may not have an infatuation with Darlie. You don't do it just to be right. That's when we quit talking all when they started pulling shit behind the scenes. And you know this as well as I do. Because you're the one who told me that Tara put her up to put that video up with my son. And then she's on Reddit lying her ass off about it. You told me. I believe you. Because I've never caught you in a lie. I've caught her in several lies. Messing with her mother's Facebook. Tried to find somebody's daycare. The fuck out of here, Sully. You ain't that important to me, bitch. You really ain't.
They're both intelligent people. And I really wish.
Call somebody a bitch. Well, she is. I mean, she lies. She's a fucking fangirl, man.
That they could emphasize more time on podcasts trying to help families rather than getting personal with people that they disagree with. I have no problem with people.
Well, look, Rich, here's the thing about the whole getting personal. I'll tell you now. We'll go through this again. I met Sully because she was in your chat where I behave myself. Always have. She was in your chat saying that she served as an expert in a criminal case that involved a gunshot to the head. My next question was, well, really? That's cool. What case was that? I wasn't checking her, really. I mean, I thought it was cool that we had an expert witness there. But it went to, well, I can't tell you that. There's a gag order. I don't want you to dox me, blah, blah, blah. I said, you wasn't no fucking expert. And that's what started it. She decided to become personal first. Why can't you answer the question? She still can't answer the question what case she's in. Well, I don't want to get doxxed. That you had to call the police on me? The fuck out of here, man. Why don't you go back to pestering your neighbor about your dog shitting everywhere? No. It got personal. You got personal. Look at this guy here. That's my family. And since you couldn't answer a question that I held you accountable for saying that you were an expert, let's take a look at what BryanSt.John's son did. Because I can't answer a fucking question.
Disagreeing with me. That's
If
the
some of
beauty
these
of
people had channeled what they've been able to find out about us into some of
Well, why don't you channel what you found out about Beja and Mary Rickles into something? The only thing I know about you is I know your dad, your mom, that I know where you live, I know your phone number, I know all that shit. But if somebody's, saying, look at this guy here. He was hiding in a closet. You goddamn right I want your fucking name. Bitch, that's my son. Fuck you.
the players in this story, I think that there could have been, a massive find much earlier on. But if I was able to find it, you were.
What did you find? You didn't find anything. The fuck? She's trying to claim she found something.
Able to find it, then it's out there, and it was out there in 1996 and 1997.
well, and again, when I have talked to Pamela Collins and when I have talked to Mr. St. John, they're very respectful toward me. They well, you don't see Pam Collins on too many podcasts. She's been on mine before, but it's been a long time. But
you deleted that. Rich, you deleted that she was on with you because she was Pam Collins and the shit out of everything you said. You deleted that. That's how not guilty you think Darlie is, because you deleted Pam's. The whole video is gone because she got you.
And Mr. St. John's been on mine as well.
Pushed them when I was on it. I didn't push them at all when I was on there. And we had a very good discussion. But nobody was throwing out insults at each other. This one here with the fake face, she came in lying. I've caught her lying all through Reddit. I don't believe a damn fucking thing she says. And I ain't got no respect for a goddamn thing she says. Nothing. Look at this guy. She was on Reddit telling people that she didn't even know me. That she just put up my son's case. She didn't even know who I was. And then I came attacking her. I didn't know this guy. I just did a true crime about his son. And then he came after me. That's what she told the people in Reddit. Go look at my video. She's a fucking liar, Rich. And she's a sad excuse for you to be promoting Darlie Routier's innocence with, because we got her number. We got her fucking number. She's a fangirl. Just yesterday, Rich, she's saying there's 18, and I'm going to go through those too. She's got me blocked on Facebook, but she's over there on City Weekly. People send me your shit. I've got your shit. And I'm going to go through that tomorrow. She's still, to this day, getting shit wrong in the case. She ain't brought nothing to this podcast. You ain't proved a damn thing here, and you know it. Nothing. Waste of time.
It's a little bit different, but when BryanSt.John was on the channel with me and Tara, he was very respectful. I mean,
I've always been respectful on Rich's channel. Always. You don't go inside somebody's house with shit all over your shoes. You don't. I know what he expects over there, and that's what I do every time. I've never been disrespectful over there. Never.
He followed all the rules that I have.
Yeah.
So I got to get credit for that. And I actually really enjoyed that debate. That was over a 6-hour debate that we had. And the same with Pam Collins. Anytime I talk to him, they've always been very.
I need to ask Rich, where is that video with Pam Collins at? And why did he take it down? He will not answer that.
Respectful to me. Now, sometimes when BryanSt.John does his podcast, he gets very personal about me, you, Danelle, other people. And, he's a smart man. I wish he could actually use those energies for the good of helping families and things like that.
Well, let me tell you something, Rich. You got to fight fire with fire. You guys come with dumbass shit all the fucking time, like Sully just did on your podcast, right? With this dumb shit that don't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything pertaining to the case. somebody new coming to the case won't learn anything from what you put on there. So you're throwing out this shit to stick, right? And all I hear is dirt being shoveled onto their boys' graves every time you do that. So this is my channel. I speak the way I want. But you bring these fucking clowns on, Rich. You should handle it yourself. She's a clown. She's a fucking joke.
Like that, because he would be a great advocate for it. And so would Pamela Collins.
I'm a great advocate for Devin and Damon because I do not let you motherfuckers get away with spreading these fucking lies that you do about this case out there. Don't let you get away with it. That's why y'all got me blocked. That's why you do pre-recorded stuff. That's why there's no live chat. Because you don't want to deal with the truth. This is exactly why you deleted the video with Pam Collins.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I
you know,
mean,
they challenge
can
us
dig
to do a
down
lot
those
of
rabbit
things.
holes.
I challenge them to do that.
Exactly. If you can dig down these rabbit holes, and now, you know, knowing what Rickles' background and Javel's background is.
You think that we didn't know that before? She really thinks, you guys, all this nonsense, but that we didn't know these backgrounds. I wasn't worried about anything that Barbara Javel did after the case. But I knew that she had a drug history because she said so. But I wasn't worried about anything she did after the case. You think that you dug that up? It just didn't mean that much to us. I could have, you know, like I said, I've got Rickles on video. You got a picture of her that I've never seen before. But what did you prove by all that? Dig up some more. Dig up more about her divorce and how she thought maybe her ex-husband was coming to the house. Dig some more up. What did you show here today? Nothing.
And there has been so many different times that we hit on a new piece of information, and I have to change my mind about, okay, well, we had this theory. Was it?
They're not hitting on any new information. She doesn't realize that some of us have been around the whole time. I've got more than 20 years in. There's nothing new. None of this means anything. Well, Darren did a little bit of coke, so we need to look at him more. The fuck out of here. You think you're the first one? I did videos of cracking on Darren for doing the coke.
Yeah, I'm just kind of throwing this out there. Was it a breaking and enter? What was the motive? Was it sexually motivated? Well, sometimes you get a new piece of information and you have to say, I might have been a little bit wrong. Let's take a few steps back and start, you know, where we know the last truth is.
Well,
and
when I have made mistakes. I have made mistakes.
Exactly.
And when I've made the mistakes, I have come on and said I was wrong. That didn't happen, or it did happen, or whatever the situation was.
Right.
You can look back through the podcast. When I was in error, I will admit it. And I have no problem in being wrong. I just have a problem with incorrect information getting out there.
Yeah.
So I'd rather be wrong than put in, you know, bad information out there. So in light of that,
Darlie told me she passed out on that porch. It's misinformation, Rich.
if I do make a mistake or misspeak or whatever, I will come back and say I was wrong. That didn't happen. I was incorrect about it.
Except for when you let Tara say, well, the medic examiner actually said that Damon could live no longer than a maximum of 9 minutes. You didn't come back and correct that and say that was wrong. You guys went back and went through you came up, you took 2 over here, divided it by 4, and took away 3. Then you ran around the house 7 times, and you came back to 4, and then, few. That's what you did. Instead of saying I was wrong, they didn't say that because they didn't.
Well, and it's like if we didn't do that, we would be the same people that Jimmy Patterson are, that, I don't want to point a finger at somebody when...
Are you harassing Jimmy Patterson and his family right now? Because you have an opinion? I don't know. I'll find out. I'll see your message. I'll find out in a minute.
And people have pointed fingers at Darlie because that would be very hypocritical of us to do, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, Sully, I can't thank you much for coming on. I thank you as much as I want to be able to thank you for coming on here today. You were great. I want to let the people know that I did talk to Danelle Stahl-Fugit, and she is willing to come on and do a one-on-one with me as well. So she's the only one left. So I'm going to see if I can get that going. And then once we get that finished, we're going to go back to the original panel, and we're going to do more stuff on a case. We're going to continue and forward. And in the future, it is quite possible that me and Anna are going to do some podcasts on other cases that we're working.
That would be interesting. I'd like to see you do some podcasts on other cases. I'd also, if, in my opinion, Rich, you're so confident that she's innocent, I feel like you should do your lives on the fly like I do. This is just my opinion. Just, turn on your computer and talk about what you know about the case. I think you should allow all opinions. I think you should stop with that non-supporters aren't allowed here type of shit. I think that you should not worry so much about what Danelle and Darla Key say, because if you feel like she's innocent, it don't matter what they think. You run with what you think. And with that, I pass. Peace and chicken grease, y'all.